for various reasons, that after a while those incompatibilities, particularly about emotional support, often cause massive rifts in those relationships. And I have to say that the happiest couples I see are people who are much closer down that other end. But not necessarily both autistic people, but certainly both more logical, more pragmatic type of people who don't require the game playing and the complicated nuanced kind of thing along the way. And sometimes it's about having a social bodyguard, sometimes it's about having one partner who's a bit more socially able, who can kind of drag the other partner out into the world and facilitate things for them in that respect. So, in terms of understanding requirements about what people want on the autistic spectrum, is that they're different, that there is no assumption. We're not all loners, we're not all people who want to be completely alone all the time, nor are we people that necessarily want to have a massive circle of fairly superficial, low-level friendships. We might just want 2 or 3 people in our lives that we can pick and choose when we see, and that's really valuable and really important. But it's not less. Don't feel sorry for autistic people. We're often happy doing what we want to do. Often some of us, including me, feel sorry for you having to talk to people that you don't like because you're too afraid to tell them what you really think of them. You know, you've all had that conversation. It's, oh God, so-and-so sent me a text, I've got to go out for lunch with her and she's horrible, I don't really like her very much. That happened to me once and Keith said, well, just tell her. Just tell her you don't like her. So if anyone wants Keith to reply to any of your friends who you don't like, he's very, very good at those kind of things. He's also very good for taking clothes shopping. He's very opinionated, so he stands in clothes. You know when, again, I'm going to be a bit stereotypical here, a lot of men look bored outside women's changing rooms. Keith is there. He's been asked to do a job and he will do the job. And you say, what do you think? And he says, I think you need a bigger size. Or, it's hideous! Is his other favourite word. So very honest, you know exactly where you are. If you are fat, you know you're fat. You're not under any illusion that you might not be. There is, or even better, sometimes I ask him one of those stupid loaded questions because I'm an idiot, and he says, I know that there's a right answer to this question, but I don't know what it is. So if you tell me what the answer is, we'll both be happy. He's a very clever man. So lonely and alone are not the same thing. Alone is the best thing in the whole world. Being without people is the best thing in the whole world. And being with a partner that gets you and accepts you is as good as being alone. And I think that's a very unique autistic perspective, that if you don't need to escape that person, it means that they are it, that they are the best you could possibly hope for, a person that is entirely tolerable. That's the biggest compliment at all if your autistic partner doesn't want to run away from you. It means that you are calming, that you're not overloading, that you're not undue kind of work or effort. We can love you but not always want to speak to you. It's not personal, it's okay. When I first met Keith, neither of us knew we had autism, and he would say, I don't want to see you this weekend, in a rather blunt, and I thought, oh God, that sounds harsh, that's hurtful. And then what I realised that he meant was, I don't want to see any humanity this weekend, which is nothing to do with me, it's to do with everybody and to do with him. And that's much less personal, and that's kind of what it's about. It's actually just escaping from anyone and everybody and being allowed to do so. We might require less chit-chat. We might not remember the names of your children or where you're going on holiday and when your operation is, and remember to tell you about all of those things. Although I do write notes to make sure I remember to make that effort, because I know that it's required. It's not a lack of care. It just doesn't stick, that kind of information. It's just not really sure what it's for, really. We might have limits on social capacity, and we might need some help to stick within the social realm. You might need to learn about what we like, and then we might find something to say. Shared interests are an absolute solid one for being able to maintain a conversation or a friendship or an interest. We might also have our own signs and way of showing people that we love them and we care about them. I have a son, he's 18 now with Asperger's syndrome, and he stopped being able to hug or kiss anybody at about the age of 5. He just found it very, very uncomfortable. So he developed a language system all of his own, which was that if he was happy, he would squeeze his eyes shut and shudder. And the longer he squeezed his eyes for and shuddered, that was a measure of quite how happy he was. So new Lego, new Robot Wars toys. God, we could have been there for a minute of him just squeezing. And that was how he told me. And he used to, rather than kiss me, he touches my hand with his finger. And he's a big boy with tattoos and a Mohican and a very independent lad. And he leans, he can't hug, he doesn't want to hug, you hug him and it's just that awkward patting kind of a thing. But if you sit next to him and watch a film, he leans on you. So there's physical contact, and it's recognising that that for him is really meaningful, that for him is love, that he wants to show you, but he can't do it in the traditional means, and that I have to learn that language and not be offended and go, why don't you ever tell me you love me? Because that's not fair, that's my requirements, not his. Keith shows me he loves me by doing the washing up and buying me a sat-nav for Christmas. Because he doesn't want me to get lost, and he doesn't want me to be any more tired than I already am from driving all over the place. So it doesn't look very loving, it doesn't look very caring, but actually, isn't that the most caring thing of all? For somebody to identify something that will make your life easier. That in itself, I was married to someone before who clearly had Asperger's, and he once bought me a frying pan. And at the time I was outraged by this frying pan, but I was on a diet, and he said, I know you like fried eggs, and this means you can have fried eggs without using any oil. But on the face of it, a frying pan is not what most women want for their birthday. You've got to look beyond that. You've got to look for the signs and the language of this person's kind of interest. Don't take it personally if you don't know who you are. It's the worst thing in the world when somebody walks up to you and says, hello, and you think, not a clue. And I'm so sorry for that, but I just don't know who anybody is. I don't know who I am most of the time. I've been in shops and looked in the mirror and thought there was a woman with a stripy dress walking towards me. It's a very confusing world to live in. Please, it doesn't mean we don't care about you. It doesn't mean you're not important. It just means that something in our brain fails to recognise people terribly well. Smiling is a big deal. I fail to smile very, very often and look rather grumpy and look very rigid. So it just may look different. We don't mean to offend. I managed to offend Tony Atwood the other day. You all know who Tony Atwood is, don't you? I managed to offend Tony Atwood with exactly all of these kind of problems. I've been at a conference and I've met with Tony a couple of times before, and I had to go and catch a plane, and I was in a real rush, and I was very, very focused, and I'd had a chat with Tony previously, and then he was in a room, and I'd left my coat in the room that he was just about to speak in, and I went into the room and he had his microphone on, and he said, Sarah, hello, you've come to join my session. And I said, no, I've just come to get my coat. And that's what I did. And off I went, and about 5 minutes later I went, because that's how long it takes to process these things. I didn't use enough words to say, oh Tony, I would love to sit in your session, but I'm really sorry, I've got a plane to catch, so I'm going to have to dash. All he got was the short version, the blunt version, the no smile, the no flim flam, the no bubble wrap. And that's the problem, that often if you feel overwhelmed, all that comes out is something minimal. If you're a non-verbal person, all that comes out is a hand, or a running away, or something. But we do care, and we do love people, and it's just different, but it's not less. So that's all I have to say to you. Thank you very much.